Right. Hello. Welcome, Stephen.
Hello.
Say hello to everybody. We are live, AGG Live. Special guest, Stephen the Buzzman. Stephen, Buzzman. Thanks for joining us. We're talking...
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure. We're talking driver distances. Let's just make sure this is muted. No, it wasn't. Otherwise, that is going to kick back at us. Make sure that one's muted as well, which it is. We've got the live chat going on in front of us, which you're going to keep your eyes on. I've got some questions which have been coming through all day as well. Some great questions about driver distances. We've got my drivers on the front here. And we've got the Twitter feed as always, which we'll get into as well. So welcome everyone, AGG Live. I'm excited about this.
Not as excited as I am.
It's quite topical at the minute because of releases of clubs which are creating quite a buzz.
Yeah, there's been quite a few of late, hasn't
there? Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about some of the facts around driving distances. We're going to answer your questions based on the facts that we know from. Now, the facts that I'm pulling from, and I think you're the same, are basically it's not my info. It's info that I've learned from independent sources.
Oh no, certainly.
And authorities in their fields. So lots of people often think, like when we've done a Sharflex video and stuff in the past, people think it's like we're like discovering this. It's not. It's that actually I'm learning this from some of the people, and we're lucky enough to kind of mingle with in the work we do. And I'm just sharing it.
Yeah, and I think like when we did the Sharflex one, we tested it. But we were only demonstrating findings that had already been found in a proper lab, in proper experimental conditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that sometimes gets thrown at us a bit when actually we were just showing, well, actually we're seeing that trend, but it was the almighty such and such actually.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, apart from effective sweet spot, I kind of found for myself. Just by thinking about it one time, but everyone knew about effective sweet spot.
I was there when you played the cutty driver into a par
you were there,
three,
weren't you? Yeah, when
par three.
Absolutely. But that was like a self-discovery. That wasn't me discovering anything new. People in club build, people making clubs know about effective sweet spot.
Yeah.
It's just I found it without their help, but all the other stuff that we're going to talk about today is based around the facts of the rules of golf and being confirmed by governing bodies and even manufacturers know the rules they're in. So before we start though, I always like to try and include our fantastic audience as much as possible. So we're going to show you a couple of pictures. This was Stephen earlier on today watching, that's the Tollmeister and Pinto. Michael Pinto. These two won a Twitter contest to play with us. So taking his selfie. Thanks for watching. We've got Tolly, who's in that picture actually, with his Copperberg strawberry juice and a packet of prawnies. I think denotes me, and that denotes Matthew. Can you see what I'm on? A little swaggy. Matthew's swaggy.
I've been told. I was
went
unaware.
So fast on
I was unaware of what a swaggy was. I thought it was one of my dodgy 3-footers, a swaggy, but...
So that was Paul Tolley's picture. Thanks for watching, Paul. And we've also got James Clark here sending his picture. And I've had more, but I just haven't had time to get them all in. But keep sending your pictures. I will try and include as many as we can. So Paul is watching an old classic there. What video is that? To have Harper... I can't remember what video that is. Where were we in that one? Someone posted in the chat. I can't remember which one that was. Who is on camera? You or Lockie? Oh, I know where that is. That must be the Belfry.
Yes.
That must be the Belfry. And that's Lockie on camera. The lovely, lovely Lockie. With his lovely ganglion wrist. Right, let's get into some questions then. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Spider has moved. Look, Terry.
Spider has moved.
They do move, spiders. They do move. Because he's a real spider.
A long debate on spiders. We've gone off topic already. We barely got onto the topic.
Right, I'm going to hit everyone with a few questions. This was on Facebook earlier. So Robin said, surely accuracy is as important. 350 yard wide right out of bounds isn't any good to anyone. What do you think of that, Stephen? Do you agree with that comment?
I totally agree. Out of bounds is not a good place to be.
No, absolutely. So he's commenting there really on people's quests for distance, isn't he? And he's saying hitting it straight is as important as hitting it long. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of talkings and good information out there about actually hitting it long and not being that straight can still be a benefit.
So what they find is like Brody's research.
Yeah.
So he's used like a lot of the shot link. It's shot link, isn't it?
So it's Every Shot Counts is the book, I think, isn't it? Which is a great book. It's a
great book. And what he's actually found is the long hitters on tour tend to be the straightest ones, but as in degrees.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you are a degree out, if it goes 200 yards, it's going to be a lot straighter than 350.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a myth that the long hitters actually hit it more offline.
Okay.
So if you think about it,
yeah, I get that.
A long hitter tends to be more efficient. They tend to be putting a great swing on it, so they tend to actually be a little bit straighter. But
who's in the chat? Coach Lockie, Long Ball Lockie's joined the chat.
Cutting me off already. I thought you'd be the one cutting me off. So they found like the long hitters actually tend to hit it straighter.
Okay. The other thing as well, obviously, the other thing as well, his point is, as in if I'm down the middle of the fairway with a 7-iron, or I'm in a certain cut of the rough with a wedge, I can still make a birdie from that cut of the rough from a wedge. Yeah. The chances of making the birdie from a 7-iron, well, for me, anyone who watches the vlogs, is bloody zero, isn't it?
But it's a good point, and like I've just been fitted for a new driver.
Yeah.
And I was far more interested.
Thanks, Callaway.
In my Alpha 816 double black diamond. But I'm more
shameless.
But I'm more interested in the dispersion. I didn't go thinking I needed to go a bit further. I was more interested in the dispersion. I think that's what he's kind of getting at.
And you say that. I think you were more interested in the cost. Right. Andy says this is. I think Andy's just having a dig at me, which is fine. People like to do that. 270 isn't a long ball though.
That is a long ball.
Well, it's interesting. So
for me, I hit my 3 wood that far.
Yeah.
Ooh, so I totally agree.
What's interesting, I think, with that is that obviously on the playing videos that we do, obviously distance, there are differences in distances, but I'm keeping. I mean, there was a little Mega Max quite recently, and even with my only short ball, there was a win for a certain person sat in this chair.
Okay.
So, shut your mouth, Coach Lockie. Wrist is good, thanks. Strong hand. What's Coach doing in there? We should phone him.
Strong hand. I hate to think what he's up to now. His wrist is better.
Right, so we're going on to the next question. Brian Fiddler asks, "Do I sleep?" Because I think this was posted at 2:00 in the morning. I don't sleep very well.
No, he
so
doesn't.
here you go. Your drive is only as good as a follow-up shot. Think of it like a blank check and then failing to deposit it. And that's a very good point, isn't it? And it kind of links back to the Brody research as well, doesn't it? In the sense that obviously your next shot is often closer to the hole, to the green, if you're using a wedge rather than a 4-iron or 5-iron. So it's kind of double-ended, his point there. Well, the reason I brought that up mainly, I like his analogy. So let's move on to another question then. This was on Twitter earlier. Ricky with a fantastic picture.
Yeah, I do.
He's probably.
I do like the. Go on, man.
Let's get that shit. I'm still using TMR7. Am I missing out on 9 years of new tech, extra distance, or is the difference minimal? That is a great question. Thanks for posting.
It's a very
now, our knowledge
one.
of R7. What do you reckon? Do we reckon that one? Someone in the on Twitter or in the comments, let us know.
I think I'm correct in saying that the R7 was the first one with the movable weights.
Yeah.
It was a smaller headed driver.
Yeah.
But basically what happened with drivers is we used to use wooden ones, so it didn't hit it very far. They introduced metal ones, so they saw an upward curve on distance. They then went for the really springy trampoline effect.
Yeah.
So again, this curve kept going up and up and up.
Yeah.
But then the governing bodies came in and said, well, actually, if we keep going at this rate, the buzzman won't be able to play. He'll be hitting it too far. So they went, no, we got to calm down. Yeah. They said, well, should we let Mark use the springier one so we can keep up with the buzzman? And they said, oh, that's just going to get complicated. So basically, they put in these rules, COR.
Yeah.
Core.
Yeah.
Core, blimey. They put in these COR. So now, everything is kind of levelled out.
Okay.
The R7...
Why did they do that?
I just said, so I don't hit it too far.
Yeah, what's the RNA USGA's main goal? They've got a mission statement. If you go on the rules of golf, it's there. There's a mission statement around their equipment. Do you know what it is? Do you know why they did it? And this is the bit that people are still failing to understand. And I do think some of the info that puts out tricks people or trips them up into not understanding this simple rule. So their mission statement is basically that the skill of the game cannot be affected. If you have a piece of equipment that makes this game easier, so easier for you than say someone else, then they don't want that to change, because the integrity of the game, in their opinions, and I 100% agree with it. It would be like, you know, you go and play Man United away, and the away goal's twice as big as the home goal. It's like, it's got to be even, and the game has to rule. And
we've seen it happen. So we're talking about drivers now, but since they've put in these limits on drivers, they changed the grooves on the wedges.
Yeah.
And now, as in a couple months, the belly putter will be gone.
And basically, this is another point that people don't understand that much, is when we had our talk from the RNA, which I sat next to you in, I remember at the
with Steve
PJ
Otto
show. Yeah, Steve Otto, great. He was such an entertaining and knowledgeable chap and presented so well. It was basically they monitor everything from your tee to your glove to your shoes to your shafts to the woods, the drivers, the putters. Everything goes through them before it can be released and given approval. So everything that you're touching in your golf game, in some ways, is built to limits and is controlled.
Oh yeah, definitely. And he, so if you've ever been lucky enough to go up to St Andrews,
I haven't.
Like I was last week.
I actually have. I've not managed to get it in my diary, and we've arranged, and I'm going to do it because their test centre's fantastic.
Yeah, so they've got a lovely range, but on the end of the range they do have this test centre,
which is where they'll randomly come in. I've heard from manufacturers, basically they come in and random test.
Yeah.
They take certain heads and they just put them in their machine, and they have to be within their limits for bounce off the face, capacity for head size. They literally just stick it in a bucket. He was telling me for the CCs. They have to play to the rules, and if they get one that doesn't, then that whole batch they have to stop it, and then they come in and make a new one, and then they'll test it again. And this is why, I mean, we've got some drivers on the front here. What's the most interesting thing in recent times, which people don't realise as well, is that actually people have started to move. So this company, TaylorMade, for instance, and you've got to take your hats to them. They innovated the idea of the CG moving forward. They were the first ones really to bring it to market, and then companies followed.
Yes,
similar ideas. What they did is they moved away from tolerance.
Yes.
So they would have gone down in MOI rather than going max MOI, like everyone's maxing all the time. They moved away, sacrificed maybe a little bit of kind of friendliness of hit through MOI loss to introduce a different spin model. So actually what's interesting is, because everyone has built two tolerances, they're actually being creative by going away from tolerances to try and find new ways of finding any kind of better performance.
It's looking at that 2D, isn't it? Well, ball speed, ball speed, ball speed. They went, I can't change that.
Yeah.
Let's get around, let's get in the back door.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what happens is you just sacrifice other things.
Yes.
And that's what I think is really interesting, is that it's like, this isn't the best analogy, but I like it. It's like making a cake. So and everyone's got the same ingredients, okay? So you can put equal amounts of the sugar and the flour and the egg in, and you get this cake, okay? But some people are going, well, actually, if we put a little bit less flour and more sugar, our cake's sweeter. Yeah. Not everyone likes the sweet cake, though, so they don't sell it to as many people. So then what they have to do is make the other cake as well. Yeah. So they make the low spinning cake, and then they make the very user-friendly cake, and then they add a bit more of the egg because they want it to slide. You see what I mean? There's no secrets here.
No.
It's all black and white, the same as dropping a ball out of a water hazard. It's black and white. And when I see people saying they hit their driver further, and I get students come and they hit their driver further, and I had one the other day saying, we hit these irons further when he put this shaft in. And I said, well, where does that distance come from? It's not magic.
No.
Were you launching it higher? Were you accidentally, or did you happen on that test to strike it higher on the face? He didn't know, but he was adamant he hit it further. Well, nothing goes further.
No.
There has to be a reason. It has to be that you've hit it better. You've hit it in a better part of the face.
Yes.
You swung faster. Or you swung slower on another test and faster. Interesting point as well. I tested MP25, Mizuno's new iron. 6 iron, 162. That's the distance it went on my first test when I reviewed it. And I actually hit another 6 iron at the time, which is a similar loft, because I was thinking that's just not very far. And that one went 162. So I just thought, that's how far I'm hitting it today.
Yeah.
Okay. I reviewed it 3 days later in a compare video, and it was going 172, 178, 168, which is my normal 6 iron distance. So what's that down to? What's the difference from day X to day Y? What's changed? Me, exactly. exactly.
Yeah.
Steve Otto, again, on that presentation he gave to us, they had a top amateur come in and he hit the ball like 9 yards further on day one. They tested him 4 other days and he couldn't get back to those speeds. And they didn't know why, apart from maybe that he was excited.
Yeah, well, that's what he went. He said excited, didn't he? And you can't test excitement, so he's trying to do a proper experiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the guys come in, all a bit excited. Yeah. Probably just watched one of your videos, and he's always ready to go.
Well, here you go. They give you an idea of the situation. When I tested that Mizuno iron, I tested it kind of mid-morning, got to work, warmed up as much as I could, and I hit it. When I tested it 3 days later, I'd been buzzing around Exeter doing jobs. I'd been really busy, kind of rushed in, didn't have much time, and started hitting.
Well, you hadn't been in the bank, so you'd be angry. You went in the bank.
So I was like really buzzing. So I was obviously just a bit faster in myself, and the distance went up. And I just think people don't work that in. So in his question...
Oh, I've had a horrible comment here. Buzzer's comment, monitoring is almost as bad as his putting.
Yeah, well, we will come to the chat soon.
I will come to that, guys.
We will come to the chat soon. I'm yabbering on. R7, though, we didn't really answer. Is he losing distance? I don't think he is.
I wouldn't put it down to ball speed, but I would be getting checked out. Is the new product easier to launch? Is there more stability? Because it's a slightly smaller head.
Yeah.
So that would be my only... If he strikes it correctly, I would imagine probably not.
Yeah.
But if you go across the face a little bit...
Yeah.
And a lot of the manufacturers, they can't make the middle quicker. So they've tried to make the outsides quicker. So you might find gains on your miss hit. So your average might actually be more consistent. So again, it's one that you would need to get checked.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Look, I've got a collar out and you've not and let me know, and I've just looked stupid for the whole part of that video now.
You look stupid most of the time, Pat.
Right, here we go. Next question. This is a great question. This is a common question. Hey Mark, are you still getting the views? Yeah. Hey Mark, nice views as always. Yes, yes for you. The adjustment on the club made little difference in your numbers because you were striking the ball so very well. Correct. What about the amateur players who tend to not be as consistent on the face? Would all the adjustments have a bigger effect on them? So would the adjustments have a bigger effect on people hitting all over the face? And I'm also going to tag my own question on top of this because people have been asking me this. If I'm only carrying it 261, what if I'm someone who carries it 300? Am I not seeing different distances in drivers because I'm not fast enough? So there are two kind of questions for me that link. What do you reckon, Steve? So the adjustments, start me off on that one.
So you can set up a club, you can try and create a bias,
yeah,
which might help, but to answer the question, the things that you can change in the head is unlikely to overrule your swing issues.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I would argue that the changeability on any of these clubs will make more of a difference to the player finding and looking for that 1%. What players are looking for that 1%? The elite players. They will see 200 revs, 300 revs on a slightly more consistent base because of their strike.
Yeah.
The amateur hitting it all over the face, basically, and people have asked me to do tests, why don't you get like an average amateur to test the club? Well, basically, you're just going to test their inconsistencies.
Yeah.
That's not really going to test the club in a way that will give any kind of plausible knowledge, apart from they like the look of that one, they like the feel of that one, which is kind of what it always boils down to anyway, and we're doing that anyway.
And again, you look, if
you're just testing their inconsistencies.
Yeah, but if you were going to do that, so you want to do a proper experiment, you'd have to try and get their data to stabilise. You'd have to hit so many shots.
Yes.
And then issues like getting tired.
Exactly.
You'd have to do it over different days of the day, like you're saying with the iron. It's not feasible.
I've done a driver test, which will come in a video soon, where I've tried, I think it's 12 drivers, and I had to split the testing into morning and afternoon. I was just losing energy. Well, basically, my speed went up, you could see. Yeah. So the ones I started testing with, I had to retest when I was like totally like warm and my body was more elastic. And then you could see me kind of dropping off a bit. Lunch, come back and picked it up. So, yeah, absolutely. I think for the amateur, thinking it'll make more difference is a common thought, but I think it's totally wrong and misunderstood. So what about a distance one then? If I'm hitting it 261 through the air, like I top out at 270, 280 if I'm having an excited day, and striking it really, really well. If I was someone who's carrying it 300, would I then see 10 yards further in these drivers? Or surely, in my opinion, they would just... all that happened if you increase the speed, then surely
I wouldn't put it into.
I can't see that it would change.
I wouldn't put it into the speed. You could argue like with myself. I mean, I have issues controlling the spin.
Yeah.
So if I get product that controls that spin.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to see bigger differences, but then you can then start arguing: is it the club or the strike? It's not as black and white as that, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I in his answer to this question, I would say actually it makes less difference. You've got to concentrate more on stabilising your strike and your delivery, basically. So we're going to go one more question before we go into the chat room, which is going mental.
It's going mental.
Going mental. Frank posted a couple of really good questions, Frank. Thank you, Frank, for commenting. He comments a lot and he's quite constructive with his comments, which is always good to see. Will a person who wants to buy a specific driver... Oh, I better bring it up. Will a person who wants to buy a specific driver hit that one better, not really thinking about it? So basically, is it like a placebo almost, isn't it, is what that's saying? What do you think?
Certainly.
100%. 100%. I used to, right? And I'm going to tell you this. I tell my lessons this, and it was the fact of the business model that I was in. I used to sell a lot of equipment when I worked in certain jobs.
It's called Dale Boy, didn't it?
It was part of the job. I was paid on it. I had to sell equipment. If there were two drivers that performed pretty much the same for the student, and I knew they wanted one more than another, I would always say things like, "Oh, that's better, isn't it? That looks a better flight, doesn't it?" And they would go, "Oh, yeah, that's much better." And I'm looking at the monitor and it's exactly the same. But I know they want that one. Why fight that? Because they're the same. So I was able to completely sway to what I knew they wanted, just with phrases. And I actually did it when I was testing shaft flex for the videos. I was doing it with Kevin Harper, and I did it with another good player who came from Sawton, the left-hander member who used to come to range.
Yeah.
And I would say we were testing height of shots on different shafts. And they're elite players. You know, Kevin's played in the Open. He knows what he's doing. And he thinks the ping was going higher than the bladed club. And he did his shots. And I know it's not because I can see the data. Peak height was the same. And I say to him, "Kevin, that's going higher, isn't it? Oh, that ping looks low tie." And he, "Oh, yeah, low tie." Like, I'm just feeding him like a card force. And then we look at the data and I say, "Look, it's not. I'm tricking you there. You're just doing what I'm saying." And people who are trying clubs, I think 100% go in there and they'll just buy one on looks and feels. And I don't lose sleep over that because, to be honest with you, they perform very similar.
Yeah, but sometimes it's that psychological standpoint. If it's very similar, if they get the one that they want and take it out on the course, they would probably perform better on the course with it than if you gave them the one that, let's say, it went 2-3 yards further.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because keeping people happy, isn't it?
You got to keep people happy, Steve. Gotta keep people happy, Steve.
Find that hard to say. It's as if I don't like keeping people happy.
Yeah, so you've been given the chance of... Let's go into the chat. Because if you trouble with the chatters, if you leave them too long, they start talking about spiders and hats and collars. So you go in there for a question, and it says things like, 2-1 now, coach. Trick my hand. Give us a question.
So
Mark is a devious monkey.
Yeah. Is that a question or a statement?
Yeah. Does Mark use the Force? Chris Diana. Do I use the Force, Buzza? There's a question from the chat.
He does use the dark side. I have heard it. It's...
Mark Mydell, boy. What's your beverage, Mark? My beverage is Guinness. Pure Guinness. He puts hairs on your beard. What else have we got on there? We've got all the way from Texas. Hello, Mark and Buzz. Hello, Charlie. Thanks for joining in. Keep them happy. He's a lovely beard. Come on, ask a question. Here we go. I can't hit a driver currently to save my life. Would a mini driver come back? Where's that one gone? Would a mini driver be more suited to me as I currently only hit hybrid off the tee? Mark Dumbleton. What do you reckon, Steve?
Yeah, well, I find when people are saying they're good with one club and can't hit driver, it's usually because they can't control the shaft length.
Okay.
So you could argue, yes, a mini driver because the shaft might be a bit shorter.
Yeah.
It might have a bit more loft, so it's the loft that's helping.
Yeah.
But I would say, let's go shorter.
Yeah.
Steve, it wasn't Steve Otto actually, it was somebody else, really good custom fitter, and he was saying the drivers come in too long.
Yeah, they are.
Average on tour is about 44 and a half.
And Callaway do that. They produce some long clubs.
Well, they all do. And I think that they probably do it because it means when they put it in the robot, they get a couple more yards.
It's a launch monitor era. You know, people are buying clubs on numbers. And numbers are great. And I use them a lot in what I do. But you've got to know how to use them. I see a lot of people using numbers and using them quite incorrectly.
Yes.
So actually, I often think they'd be better off just looking at the ball flight.
And we got a good question then.
I've stopped that one.
Do beards make you hit it further? And I can answer that one 100% yes, because if you can grow a luscious beard, the potential is amazing.
What's that one above it though? I thought you were going to read. Driver with their CG back spin more than drivers with their CG more forward and lower. So why do blades like MP4s, which have their CG more forward, spin more than cavity backs like JPX? Do you know the answer to that with back CGs?
Well, the twisting is different, isn't it?
Well, basically, the CG on a bladed iron isn't low.
No.
It's up the club more.
Yeah.
So your strikes will tend to be on it and below it on a bladed club.
So
it's gearing up and spinning more.
Because it's around the edge.
Because it's not got all that weight at the bottom. So you take a JPX, which has the weight at the bottom and off the back. So you've got to remember, if the weight's off the bottom and at the back, it's going to come up through in a straight line, kind of diagonally through club. So it's going to get kind of 3 grooves up CG, and then you're catching above the CG, so you're actually bringing spin down.
Like we had this, like Kev for years was trying to reduce spin, wasn't he, with his irons?
Yeah, and
he's going bladier, and he needed to go a bit chunkier, which he has.
He did for a bit. What's he using at the minute? Is he still chunky? He brought one set back to me today.
He's got some Callaway. It's the previous model, but it's the pro version of one of the cavity awards.
Chris, scroll up. I had a real question. Sorry, Chris. The chat moves quick. Okay, what is your thoughts on golf balls with driver distance? How much do you deliver different balls? Do you believe different balls will affect distance? Will affect distance, like he's trying to say there. Chris Milton. So how much will ball affect distance?
Not a lot.
Well, if you go to Pinnacle from say Pro V, you'll see a distance gain. So, but if you
how many yards are you?
I've not tested enough to give you the real data on that, but I know there is a distance gain. To give you another example though, if you go Titleist's entire ball range, not Pinnacle, Titleist, all their balls go within 5 yards of each other. Robot tested.
Yeah, 4 or 5 yards.
And when I was testing balls for a video, I had the phone Titleist up. I was like, guys, I'm confused because my 7-iron and my driver with a Pro V is spinning exactly the same as like a PTS or whatever it was at the time.
I don't know, like they
so
say,
my understanding of balls was wrong, and I've been selling them for years.
And like they say, don't they, that if it wasn't for the price, the Pro V is the ball that everybody should use because it spins better around the greens.
Correct. But it still spins not loads with a driver.
Yeah, so the difference in the ball is actually in your lower clubs, not with the driver.
Correct. Yes, so a ball can make a difference, but you have to take the ball really to the extreme. Yes. You have to go to one of those rock solid balls.
How much difference? Rock.
Yeah, how much difference? I can't tell you now, but it's something that we should test and do a video on to let everyone know. Okay, next goes further than a pro. We don't get that. Do you guys? What does that say? Where's that one gone? Oh, it goes so quick, doesn't it?
Quick, and I'm so useless with the Mac.
When are you two going to do your next course vlog? Next Friday we're playing.
Next Friday, the Buzzman
Yeah.
dominates again.
Yeah.
Mega match is gone. We're going to play on a nice big course. Driver in the hand.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Buzzman wins.
What do you think of USA Walker Cup player Chamber? I can't say his name. Having all irons the same length. Ewan, that's a good question. Yeah.
So that's cool actually, because I got fitted for an Adele, and the guy who fitted me for my putter.
Yeah, he said Adele there.
Yeah, so the guy who fitted me for my putter fitted him. So he's actually a physics major.
Yeah.
So he's tried to think about it and make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
He really tries to play within himself.
Yeah.
So he's a massive lad, but he really just tries to kind of tap it.
Okay.
But what I asked the fitter, I said, if you gave him normal clubs, do you think it would affect anything, or do you think he is just a talented lad and he could work around anything?
Yes.
And he kind of said, yeah.
Yeah, of course he can. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's one of those where physics major, he's put in a nice hypothesis. He's gone, this works. Because like his driver as well, he's got loads and loads of added weight on the head.
Okay.
But again, it sounds like, and I don't know the numbers, but he kind of pats it on the course, a bit like someone I know. But they were saying when he was at the US Open in a practice round, when he unleashed, he was big like Dustin Johnson.
Okay.
So I think he's come up with a theory on how to play. So rather than saying is it good or not, it's actually, that's his theory, and it seems to be doing very well for him.
Excellent.
So who's to argue?
Okay, great. We're going to do 2 more questions. I'm going to pick one from Twitter here, and you find one.
I'll find a great one.
The feed there, so you can scroll down, and if it moves, you can scroll up, and it stops it. So scroll down to the latest ones, I would, Stephen. So this is a question: do people try to hit the ball too hard to increase distance? E.g., your vid of Rory McIlroy at the Iris, effortless but 300 plus. Danny's question there from Twitter. So do people try and hit the ball too hard to find distance, Stephen? That's the question posed. Have you found one yet or not?
Potentially.
Okay, cool, yeah.
It's looking, can you still keep your swing shape? So if somebody's really trying to hit it hard and they're kind of jumping out, and it sometimes happens. Delivery is king. Yeah. It really is. Tom Wisham, the famous club fitter, he says the easiest way to find more distance is hit it out the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is what can sometimes be compromised.
Yeah.
There's research out there, and it kind of argues both ways. Steve Otto actually did a study up in St Andrews with a guy at Ulster.
Okay.
Professor Wallace.
Wallace.
God, look at the knowledge.
The Professor
and they found like going longer in the shafts made a positive difference, but then there were also arguments saying, well, it affects launch, etc., etc. So it's
a trade-off. Like
it's a trade-off. Yeah.
Of them. For me, I always want my students to go as fast as they can while controlling delivery, which is basically what Steve is saying there as well. So I don't see people swinging too fast. I see a lot of people say, I hit that one too fast, I hit that one too hard, and they deliver a club head speed which is no faster than any other of the shots where they said they hit a good one, which I always think is quite an interesting one. So people's ideas of their swing speed are often not really the reality, which is again why I would measure always to try and back up what they're feeling with some actual facts. But a good question, thanks for posting. Stephen, hit me with the last question of the night. This has been a good vlog, hasn't it? Vlog. This has been a good live feed, AGG Live.
So we've got Evans asked, is there a massive difference from £170 drivers to the £450 drivers? So I think he's comparing the kind of the premier brands against the cheaper ones. Yeah,
good question. The biggest difference that I think you'll find is it'll come down to a little bit of shaping and looks. It'll come to any kind of innovations. But as we've kind of established tonight, innovations are very minimal. Like the envelope is just being nudged, it's not being shoved. Also, custom fit options and then availability to try different options of custom fit. That's where you start losing, because the smaller brands, even though producing good product, haven't got that network and maybe, and I don't quote me on this because I don't know, but I would imagine the funds to be able to get that network because they're a smaller company.
Yeah.
So you're going to lose out on maybe your ability to test different variations, and then a little bit on shaping if you want a club to look a certain way. You know, these companies will spend a lot of time. Look at them. I always think this is amazing. Yeah. If performance was the only thing that mattered with these drivers, they wouldn't waste time painting them and making them as pretty as they are. They understand that consumers will react to the prettier looking items, and I think a great example of that are these guys who do make great looking product, but they don't, it's not as if they're entering the pretty pictures of lots of the others. They've always kept to their kind of more it's all performance and we'll make it look decent.
And it's real interesting because, and not so much now because of the way you can remove the shaft to change different face angles, lofts, etc. But back in the day, a Tour Pro would happily let the fitter heat the club up, bend it, and take it back out. That's not going to do the paintwork any good.
No, absolutely.
But they are 100%, I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it goes better,
yeah,
I don't care if the paint's missing.
yeah.
I saw Podrick Harrington. I saw him at the Ryder Cup, and he had a hybrid in the bag.
It's
It
been
looked
beaten up.
like it had come from a charity shop.
Yeah.
Even Luke Donald was there having a bit of a giggle with him.
Right.
But again, if it does what he wants it to do,
Yeah.
guys like that don't care. So it's finding that trade-off. I think sometimes, going back to the question, is if it's a really low-end brand, you might see a problem. Custom fitting can be a massive problem. Sometimes these middle-of-the-range brands...
I mean, the £170 is the middle of the range, isn't it?
But sometimes what you'll find is that brand aren't spending the money on advertising, so it's not like a material issue. It's just that we are paying for the advertising.
Yeah.
So you could argue that, but again, it comes back down to the custom fit. It always comes back to the custom fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you find big gains, it's usually because the product fits you better.
Yeah.
I know they're putting stuff in to try and optimize the fit, and that's kind of the way they have to go now.
Yeah.
But it tends to be the fit.
Yeah.
The fit is king.
Fit is king, Stephen. The fit is king. AGG Live is king. What a show. I'm loving this show. Thanks for everyone who watches. Thanks for everyone who comments. Thank you, Steve, for joining. It's fun, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's great.
I love this interaction. How direct is that? That's going off. Twitter's going off. Facebook's going off. And hopefully we're answering questions pretty directly and as honestly as we can. No companies are involved. I literally dug these out. They were getting thrown away at the range.
We're not going to do that. I thought the reps were in behind. Prodding.
Yeah. Don't say that. Don't say that. I just dressed it with those. That is going to swap at some point for pictures of my hole-in-one, pictures of my freewood when we had our fantastic victory at R&D. Maybe a little video looping around of you missing a part or something like that.
Have you got that? Have you? You have at your disposal pictures of me missing parts. What? Surely, if you had that, you would have put it on social media again and again and again.
But so thanks everyone. I love this show. There's gonna be loads more of it. I've got big plans for it. We've got loads of special guests lined up and things happening. And I've enjoyed tonight. I think we've hopefully made people realise that it's about fitting. It's about not kind of purring so much over those massive distance gains that you hear people say, because they're just not happening. If they are happening, there is a reason. One thing to think about actually before we finish, which I think is a really interesting point. I saw one piece of content where someone was saying that they hit a ball further than the last year's model. That is only saying to me that the last year's model wasn't fitted correctly for them. It doesn't mean this one's going further. It either means they don't understand the data that they're talking about, or where they've struck it in relationship to the strikes of the one they were talking about, or last year's product wasn't fitted correctly for them. It's as simple as that, basically. Distance is not magic. It's not Lockie magic. He didn't sprinkle his little magic dust on it. Chipping in is Lockie magic.
It's a myth! It's a myth!
Distance can always be equated for. It can always be accounted for, I should say. There's a reason. And it isn't because these clubs are going particularly further or not, but they're all good clubs performing within their kind of their brief, if you like. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for everyone who's watching. Look forward to seeing you all again on the next AGG Live. Speak to you soon.